So on the show today, embodied philosopher, say more about what it is, Ligia Koijen Ramos. I've murdered her name, I'm sure. My Portuguese is terrible. Joining us actually from the Netherlands, but it's been very helpful for me in learning about embodiment in Portugal. I was at the Embodiment conference, and yeah, lots we can talk about today. So welcome.
Thank you.
What got you interested in the body?
Oh, that is a good question. I think since ever, because I was a ballerina for many years. So body was my language. I was not so much as a speaker. So I always used my body to communicate. So I think since a very young age, I was very aware that the body was a language.
And tell us a little bit about your life story. We like to begin there on the show. By the way, if you see me tapping my phone, I'm taking notes, not texting my mum.
So my story.
Yeah, your story. So ballet, I imagine you started young. Tell us about it.
Okay, let me start with, so I was born in Portugal, like you said already that, yeah. So I was born in Portugal. I was what people call an introvert. So I decided at the age of 14 that, yeah, I needed to do something about it. So I started doing theater. So I do theater since I'm 14. I did classic ballet as well. And then I decided that, okay, what I'm going to study. So I went for philosophy, and was the best thing that I did in my entire life.
Wow. You don't regret this is so from sort of university undergraduate level.
Yeah, I did, excuse me?
Where was that? In Lisbon or Coimbra?
Yeah, was in Braga. It was the most known philosophy university from Portugal.
Nice place.
Yeah, was a nice adventure, and was the only course that I applied to because I was at that time very divided already, because I was very good in science, biology, but I was also very good with letters, words, and so I was like, okay, what, I'm going for medicine, but was not really that. I go for I don't know, being a lawyer was not that. I tried, I did radio for many years, so I went a little bit for journalism as well, but then philosophy was that had it all, so you get this amount of possibilities, and I don't regret at all. Then I finished. I went to work in human resources, so I worked in fashion. I don't know how I end up there. Honestly, I worked in a retail fashion company for many years. And then I started studying NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and I started studying very different topics as well. I did Tantra, I did meditation in India and yoga. And so I did a lot of different trainings and studies. Yeah, and now I'm in Amsterdam because I married a Dutch guy.
Married a Dutch guy, nice tall Dutch man, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say the women in Portugal are very short, so I noticed that. I feel tall when I'm in Portugal, I look above everyone. But
I'm 170, so I'm like, okay.
Oh, you're pretty tall for Portuguese. Okay, yeah. So that's nearly my height. Okay. Yeah. So philosophy has a reputation as being very dry or theoretical. Like we say in English, something's philosophical. Like, hey, it's just philosophical. It's not real. Like it's like academic. It's like this word that has a double meaning, one of which is a bit negative. And suddenly, the little bit of philosophy I did at university, we had electives. So around psychology, it's quite common. You do a few modules of philosophy of science, philosophy of mind. We're very disembodied. And even the department, I remember there was a lot of people who were sort of either skinny or obese and smoking, and they didn't look like a department that was like. It's not like you got a geography, there's lots of people in the rugby team, and they're sort of physical. Yeah. It seemed like a very mindy, disembodied kind of department at my university. I don't know if that's typical. So maybe you could say like what it would be an embodied philosophy. Like what does that even mean?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because my first assignment in my first year when I just entered university my teacher of story of philosophy, he gave me an assignment, and I decided to transform the theory of Kant in how to ride a skate.
How to ride a what?
A skateboard.
Oh, wow. So you combine Kant, which is just one of the most ridiculous, hard things to read in the, the deepest well of German intellectualism, with skateboarding.
Yes. So, and that is what I do until today, So yeah, I understand, and I still have some friends that are philosopher, and they are like that, they have this look, and but I'm not like that at all. I'm very practical. If I cannot do it, if I cannot translate that in movement and expression, doesn't exist.
So I have to ask, what does Kant have to do with skateboarding? Like, is there
I don't remember the full, but I can look for it. I don't know if I still have
even the connection there. That's
yeah, because it's the learning process, right? It's the learning process. Imagine how can because sometimes you think, okay, I need to learn something, and we transform that in. Some people are very, okay, I'm going to just do it. I just go, I buy a skateboard and I just try it. Some people will try to figure out what is the right position and what I need to take care of. And some people will be in between. So it's this construction of
how we
learning.
Okay, I'm doing a lot of weights at the moment. It's very interesting. You see people in the gym, some just go in there and start lifting things. And some watch all the YouTube videos, some have to have a PT. You sort of see these very different ways of learning about the same thing kind of happening.
And the thing is that you will have, in the end, can be that you have the same results, right? But you will reach them in different times. And I will say that if you are able to combine the process, the learning process in several and different ways by deconstructing, that is the word, it's maybe easier and faster.
Okay, yeah, like I can observe people who are already in there. I could read a couple of books. I could listen to my own body. And I notice in our culture, some of them, typically embodied ones, are sort of not really privileged. Like in the average philosophy department, the idea of how do you feel about it isn't really important. So I was it Descartes sort of saying you should block your ears and block out your eyes and try and remove yourself from the body as much as possible. And Freud, similar kind of thing. Lie down on the couch, try not to be in the body. And like I know some of my students who come to me, they've done a lot of learning about. So the first thing they say on the embodiment course is, "What books should I get?" And I'm like, "No, I think you meant to say, what practices should I do, and which sensei should I observe, and who should I be around, and what environment should I be immersed in?" John Vervaeke talks about these ways of knowing we've had on the show, and some of those just aren't normally part of Western philosophical tradition, right?
Yeah, no. And I think, for instance, that is one thing I remembered when I did my yoga training in India. You are expecting, because you're coming from that idea of learning, that someone is going to tell you, oh, do this and put yourself like this. And that doesn't happen. So you have someone doing it and you just see it and you do the same. And with that process, you learn.
Yeah, I remember that being very frustrating when I first started learning Aikido. I had actually had a Western teacher from Yorkshire, the North, but his teacher was Japanese, so he just used the same method, and he would just show things. He would say maximum 10 words a session, and you had to kind of observe, and I couldn't observe. I didn't have that skill. Whereas I know my friends in Ethiopia, who I lived with, a dance troupe in Ethiopia, they would watch a dance once and be able to. And I was like, wow, they've learned a way of learning, which was spectacular to see.
And in ballet, it's also the same. The teacher is not going to tell you how to put the arms, or they are going to show you. And I think that is the beauty that, and also when you look to someone, you see much more if you observe the full system, right? Because you cannot enter the brain. You will, it's always an unknown to this. Yeah, but the body.
Pick up things that aren't helpful, and there is just something about being around students. Like I've been teaching online a lot, and we can really teach really well embodied techniques online. But I want to be around the students. I want the students to absorb it. Do you know what I mean? Like there's something else that isn't quite just the technical.
Yeah, because I think we all speak in like our presence. You know, like a lot of times we say, like the presence also shows a lot of subtle learning, right? It's not the content anymore. So it's like almost like a process of mentoring by your presence, by all the things that you do, and that is something that we can still have a little bit when we are online, but of course when we are facing each other and sometimes even touching each other, that is a totally different process of learning, and I think we are missing that. I don't know if you read was a study that they did a study with college students and kindergarten kids, and they had exactly the same task, and the kindergarten were better without speaking. And because the academic students, they were trying to understand and create norms in the communication. And the kindergarten, if someone was doing a mistake or doing something that was not working, they were just pushing it, like, go away, now is my turn. And with the body, without almost speaking to each other. And sometimes we trust too much in wording. Now we trust too much what people are saying, and we get less contact with this presence, this touch and this relationship between bodies as well.
And it's always a simplification. As soon as I give an instruction, it is a simplification to a point where like a huge amount's being missed. Whereas if I look, my unconscious can be absorbing things that I'm not even aware of, which is a blessing, actually, I would say, in terms of picking up.
Because when you are teaching, right, you are just putting out almost the result, and you are missing a lot of the parts that also can make what the person is doing unique. Because you can explain something, but still the person can make that same thing in a unique form. And that comes not by explanation, right?
Also, we don't know what we're doing, right? If you ask the person anyone how to walk, they wouldn't have a clue. Like we wouldn't say, well, like gluteus maximus, and I move my center of balance forward. People wouldn't even they shifted their weight onto one leg, which is you can't walk without doing that. You have to shift weight, and like people wouldn't even realize that they were doing that. You'd have to really break. And I remember when I've been very mindful on a retreat, and I've tried, it's really, and I'm maybe only capturing 10% of what I'm doing, if that. So how do I teach it when I'm only getting 10% when I'm super mindful, let alone the rest of the time? What other areas of philosophy do you think are interesting, maybe to embodiment people listening? Like what? Because obviously, again, it's like theory of mind. I mean, theory of learning. We're discussing. I think they'll find that interesting. A lot of teachers listen. What other areas of philosophy would you say kind of?
I think the beauty is to look at us, each one of us, as a system. And I'm a believer that the more we go for the idea of system, that everything is impacting everything, we let go of this division between mind and body, because that is a little bit ridiculous even. So like for me, the way my neuroniums are connecting is embodiment. The way that I'm moving, I don't know, my shoulders is also. So it's like for me, is this philosophy of integration, and start thinking about us, human beings, and not only as a system. And everything impacts everything, and more, and the more we go for practice, and if we are using this as for others as well, as we connect with this, better we will be feeling with ourselves, but also we can support better other people. Because the amount of times that I have people saying, I understand what is going on with me, but I cannot do something different. And of course not, because you have a biology as well. You have chemical reactions in your body. You can not only go for your thoughts, but you can also not stay with only the idea that my body, whatever that is enough. So the combination is the power. The integration is the power. And the awareness of our own power is fundamental, I think.
Makes sense. I mean, sort of systems theory and looking at things as verbs, not nouns. One of my teachers says it's kind of the connections, integrations, multiple. Being able to look at multiple. I'm biology, but I'm also psychology, but I'm also sociology. Culture. All these things, layers. We call them layers in our model. They're always happening simultaneously. I was talking to a student yesterday about practices, people, and places, saying you can't really separate these out. What they're like, well, is this practice good? And I'm like, well, with who? Where? You can't separate out the what without.
No. And the thing is that, of course, some things we can say, okay, they tend to work with most part of the people and in most part of the elements. But yeah, if you are not looking to the individual as a system by themselves, also this idea like, this works for everyone, and like, okay, probably you're going to find someone that will not work, and then what do? So that is I work with people for more than 20 years, and of course some things I go like, okay, this tends to work with most part of them, but it's always one that like doesn't work. So you need to observe
right.
And what the system is, what that particular system is showing you. And now that particular
in what field primarily? Like when you say work with people one-to-one, like what's the modality?
Yeah, I do groups as well. So I train coaches, I do certifications in NLP as well, but also leadership, communication, that type of things. And I do coaching one-on-one as well.
Okay. And maybe in one more area of ethics, as we're sort of learning philosophy, interrelationality, but ethics. This is a really hot topic because for the first time in a lot might remember, the entire world is discussing individual versus social ethics around health. Yeah. And it's really like, it's really like on the up for debate. Can a group tell an individual they have to stay at home? There's an example. Can a group tell an individual they have to wear a mask? Can an individual tell a group to go fuck themselves? Where's the line, right? And now that conversation is always happening in that, for example, I grew up with seatbelts, that was taken for granted. Equally, I grew up with smoking in pubs, and then at a certain point, people said, let's not smoke in pubs because of passive smoke, and that's bad for the health. So these are conversations about ethics, and they're really at the fore right now. So I'm wondering if you've got any sort of embodied ethical insights around any of this stuff.
Yeah, so I think we need to be, I think for me at least, the way is that I see things with, okay, what is what? And some things, I think we are not being clear with each other. And that makes a big confusion, right? Because I think, for instance, when someone is talking about the vaccination, right? I say, okay, this is not about you and me. This is about logistics. So this is about countries that cannot provide health care for everyone at the same time. So this is a logistic matter. Now, this is nothing to do with me and you as a person. And that, for me, helps me to place, okay, how do I want to relate with this logistic? How do I want to relate with this subject? Do I want to be part of this logistics? Do I want to be taken care if I get sick or not? So if I want to be taken care, if I want to guarantee that me or my family is taken care in terms of logistic points. So I go like, okay, do I go for the vaccination? Because if I go for the vaccination, I make sure that it is the probability of getting care is bigger, because less people will have need of care if we are vaccinated. So I tend to put things in this type of
very Kantian, yeah, very Kantian.
Yeah, I tend to put things in a dynamic process. So this is not about me and you. It's not. It's like in a house you have the logistic part. So
that's still a collectivist. That's a collectivist leaning, essentially, which I despise. But I'm happy that you presented it so eloquently. What about the idea of the skin boundaries? So implicit in Western ethics for a few hundred years is this idea that our body is ours, right? The body is not. Now there are exceptions to that, like being a child or when you're pregnant, people touch you and sort of these, you become a bit collectivized. But generally the idea is my body, my choice. And the idea that we actually find it implicit and therefore vile if that is broken. So we know that no one should have sexual contact without their choice because it's their body, right? We have some sense that I get to decide what I eat, and only a child you would force food on them, right? I wouldn't, because that's what goes into my body. And again, that's the sort of the line where the collective has traditionally ended.
But let me tell you one thing. I'm totally okay because I put this, for instance, the vaccination in a logistic point of view. I really don't care about your decision. It's your decision. I don't get any disturbance if someone says to me, I'm not vaccinated. I like,
sure. I equally think that's people's choice. But what about if someone said you have to be vaccinated?
Oh, yeah, that is a different. Yeah, that is a different topic. That is the obligation of getting vaccinated. That is a different thing, because then
Austria has that.
And even here in Holland started, and then they stopped because even some companies were saying to people, you cannot come to work if you are not vaccinated, and like, whoa, that is a totally different topic, right? And that is not. That again needs to be very explicit why that is.
Okay, why is that in your view of sort of embodied philosophy then? Because for me, it's very clear it's about bodily integrity. That's the line. My social duties end of my skin kind of thing.
Exactly.
Like you have no rights over my body.
Exactly. And you have and each one of us has the right to say, I don't want this.
And what about the counterclaim that, so my friend said, yeah, okay, you have a right for your body, but if you're infecting me with something, then it becomes my business.
Yeah,
so actually, I do have a right to tell you what goes in your body.
Yeah, but in these terms, for instance, even with vaccination right now, that is not the case. That is not the case at all. So even if you are vaccinated, you can get the virus anyway. So that is a fake.
Sure, but there's a reduced risk, right? I think I don't want to. I'm not a scientist on this topic, so I should be careful what I say. And I tend not to sort of speak about topics I'm not expert on. I'd rather speak about ethics. But as I understand it, there is a reduced, 50%, something like that, reduced infection risk.
What I know, I'm also not a scientist. What I know is that, and I know by doctors, because, for instance, my husband, he had a brain cancer. And it was a discussion if if you were going to be vaccinated or not, and what was the consequences. And what the doctor said is that, okay, having the vaccine is not going to prevent at all. Is only controlling a little bit the symptoms and the impact of the disease.
Okay, I heard it was 50% reducing risk of infection, but certainly not removing.
But then I think is a choice. For instance, if you are in an environment and you say, okay, I'm not vaccinated, you need to accept that someone say, okay, I don't want to be with you. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I had family members at my Christmas get-together be very dubious about allowing me at the Christmas meal, for example. And I was like, wow, I was kind of surprised. But then I went, all right, I get it. They're elderly. It's their choice. I'm going to respect that. You know? So this idea of the collective and the individual, it's not simple, is it, ethically? Because
no, at all.
we're
No,
always
at all.
in the collective. It's not like I can say my individual choices and
No,
fuck you. Right?
no. Yeah, you at this moment it's tricky because you cannot really be out of the collective, right? You need to address.
We're collectivized in a novel way as a species that actually we've always been collective, right? Just the mood I'm in is always affecting people.
Yeah.
You know, personally, I think it should be mandatory for, you know, uptight people to have sex every day. It should be dictated by the government that they should be given high-class prostitutes in order to make them in a better mood, because otherwise they're just very uptight and they're upsetting everybody else. You know, some people should be mandated this. Obviously, I'm joking, but you see that we're always impacting the collective.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I think. Okay, let's take this to a higher level in terms of abstract thinking. Honestly, what I think we all have is a lot of scared of dying.
That's a huge part of what's going on. Fear of death is a huge part.
We are all trying to keep ourselves, you know, until we are really old. And we have a huge problem with that. Because, that also means that, for instance, the government is taking some measures to make us live longer.
As long as possible. The average age of death in COVID in England is 82.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's not a tragedy of your grandmother. And I would be 84 and not 82, but that's still pretty old.
Here in Ireland is a huge amount of people with 100 years old.
So this fear of death, I think, particularly in the face of a lack of meaning. Yeah. So, for example, I have friends that have a deep Muslim faith, and they have less fear of death. Or I have friends, you know, I can imagine someone living in another culture, another time, that had a very strong sense of purpose in life that was meant survival, even European culture, right? So World War I, World War II, people died for a cause. People signed up to say, I will die for my country, I will die to stop the Nazis, I will die to be a Nazi. People would die for a cause. I would die for communism, I will die to fight communism. Now, I don't think anyone I know would die for anything other than maybe an immediate family member at a stretch, maybe your kids, which is sort of you by proxy.
Even that, it's so...
die for now?
Yeah,
we're philosophically bankrupt. We're philosophically like Nietzsche's fucking finally come true.
Yeah, I think we are so detached from what is life. That's why we are so scared of dying. Because
clinging to it.
Yeah, I think most part of the people are not living. They are just making sure again that they stay alive, you know.
I mean, all that's really left is survival and hedonism, right? If I look at our culture, they're the two priorities. You survive as long as possible. And when you're young, you get as much blowjob and chocolates as you possibly can. Like it's just pleasure and survival. Because that's all that's left. There's not meaning.
Because it's this instantaneous thing. How can I get instantaneous stuff? And also this idea of happiness. What the hell is that?
Happiness is the meaning of life.
Like, what is that? I always like when I ask, okay, what is your highest intention? And people say to me, I want to be happy. And I said, okay, what is that? No one knows.
No one knows. I mean, it's because people have looked into it philosophically, right? The Greeks had different words, different concepts, and it includes, for me, some measure of purpose, some measure of pleasure, but elements to it.
Will be more. The Greek idea will be more contentment than happiness.
Right. And I think that's what even studies that say, oh, the Scandinavians are the happiest in the world. No, they're fucking not. They're miserable. What they're measuring is that they're sort of satisfied and don't complain much because life's okay.
Yes, life is okay. You know, you can pay your bills. You have time with the family. Your schedule in the work is okay. You can still meet friends. And wow, I'm happy. But honestly, when I ask people, and my clients even like, okay, what is happiness for you? They go like, it's the moment of silence, you know. And I'm like, why we don't go for joy, small joys? And yeah, like you were saying, oh, I went for a walk in the park. That's it. That's it. You know, I just had a hug with a friend. That's it. Because you don't know. And if you go for, my husband died in July, last July, and the experience that I had in my full system was so intense that I realized, okay, you know what? It's so easy to die. And I felt one moment, I was like, I felt really this like, okay, it's so easy to die, and it's so possible to die right now. So if I'm going to stay alive, it needs to be a little bit more than happiness.
Okay,
it's not about happiness. And then also your body changes when you realize that your full system is integrating this all awareness of living, and you can amplify your life, and then you don't get afraid of dying.
Do you think the last 2 years, sometimes I feel like it's been a wasted opportunity for a death meditation? Because it seemed like the last years, in order to control everyone and get distracted and space out, it's been a way to not acknowledge our mortality.
Yes.
Right? As opposed to, because it could have been like, wow, death is here. Consumerism is a piece of shit. It's no substitute for this. We need meaning. Let's wake up. Life is short, right? And for some people it has been. I have heard that from some people. But for most people, I don't think so. We've gone sort of deeper into the sand, put our heads deeper into the sand.
Yes. I remember when my husband was sick, some friends, they will come and say, oh my God, I wish to know that you will die. Because the brain cancer, was the diagnosis. And he said, now I'm not pretending.
Right, because we all know we're going to die, but we're pretending like. And I found middle age to be a light version of this. I know it's not comparable to your husband, but middle age is like, okay, those teeth aren't growing back. You know, I've got some enamel that's just gone. And it's like, you know, I'm in the gym and I'm going, okay, that's different than when I was 25. And you know, there's a few doors that get closed. You'll never be a ballet dancer again. I'm sorry. You know, like, like I there's doors that close, there's physical things, and it becomes harder and harder to deny as you get older. Yet somehow we generally do, or people generally do. Like, you've got white hair. It's every time you look in the mirror, you see white hair, right? I mean, surely it's like only old people have white hair. I'm sure someone's.
I have a lot.
So well, how do we do that? How do we keep denying this obvious thing? I know there's whole philosophers that focus on this.
Yeah, I think we deny it because we don't know what it is. And we know what happens when we don't know, right? We just pretend that it's not there. Like, we don't know. And I think that it's the same thing. What they did with birth. With birth, birth became a medical act, right? For most part of the people, became a medical act. Let's control this, the maximum that we can. And it's the same, because they are two, the beginning and the end, they are unknown. We don't know.
Right.
We don't know. It's just in between, pretending that we know everything. But we don't know. We don't know what happened. We still don't get full awareness, okay, how birth happens, how this creation happens. But also we don't know what is to die. And people get scared because both processes are a lone process. You are born alone and you die alone. That is no other way.
And there's a sort of brutalness in that that's hard for people to really accept on some level, right?
Yes, because there's something there, and if I come back, and if I go, because we still believe in hell.
Sorry, you believe in what?
A lot of people still believe in hell,
in hell, okay, on some level, even if it's unconscious, in the background, they go, I don't really logically believe in hell, but there's some sense I'm going to be punished. It's like people sort of still believe in God and sort of don't they? You know what I mean? If I wear a mask, then, you know, God will think I'm a nice person. If I give money to a homeless person, then there's some, you know, white, you know, beard man in the sky is going to give me nice things. It's sort of there somehow in the background, right?
And you're going to if you ask people, why are you doing that? Because I want to be a good person. So whom?
Who are you impressing?
Exactly. For what? Oh, but I want to please people. For what?
Can we talk about conformity? Because you're Portuguese, but you live in the Netherlands.
Yes.
I find the Netherlands, people might be surprised, but it's a very conformist culture, actually. I mean, a little bit less in Amsterdam, but certainly as soon as you're outside. I find them very rigid. And people might not have that expectation because Dutch people are known as tolerant, but actually the culture I find quite dull and conformist, especially as an Anglo-Irish rebel. Now, Portugal, I've had a similar experience. So I'm in Madeira, which is a Portuguese island, and I spent 2 months in the Lisbon area this year. I'll give an example of this. So I'm in the gym, and I said, can I put my protein shake in the fridge? And the fridge is there for towels, but there's space enough, and it's not going to spill. I'm not going to make a mess. There's no practical reason. And the guy just looked at me weird, and he was like, it's not really for that. And it was like I'd done something creative, and a similar thing. I'm in the sauna, and I brought in a bucket, and I started putting ice in the bucket, and there was an ice machine that people could cool themselves with. And a woman rushed in like a policewoman and said, "What are you doing with my ice?" And I'm like, well, hang on. First of all, I'm the only customer in here, so technically I think it's my ice. But I was doing an ice bucket, and I explained to her I was going to put water in there and a bit of ice, and I was going to do a cold dowels. And you can see she wanted to stop me, even though I was harming no one. The ice was offered for the guests. You know, I wasn't taking all the ice or anything. And in both cases, there was a fear of like, you're doing something that's not allowed or that's a bit different. What's that about? Because I've seen it so much in Portugal. I see it around the world, and I think it's very relevant to what we're talking about with COVID and other things. But what is that about? Because it's so non-Irish.
Yeah, I think it's the control part, right? This is not good. What I cannot, what is not under a rule, I don't know what to do. So it's like
dangerous. The sense I got. I was like, I'm doing something dangerous.
Yeah, but because it's almost like anything can happen.
So, right. So you're putting ice on yourself. What do you mean when you put your protein shake in the fridge? Why would you do such a crazy thing? I'm like, this is not crazy. You should see me on a Saturday night naked with a couple of Ukrainians. This is not my idea of crazy, okay? Like this is 1 out of 100 on my scale, motherfucker. But but the reaction was
but I think people, for instance, I'm going to give you my example. I always, I'm a person that I can really surprise people. So I don't know, but I always say this example. So if you see me in the street, I have white hair. I'm a tiny person. I'm not big. So you are not counting that I'm strong, right?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
You look at me and you're like, okay, she's not strong, but I am. So I can hold, for instance, and this happened a lot with my husband. Sometimes he was painting and I could hold him and he was 85 kilos. I'm 50. And people like, what is this? And I go like, that is the fact of surprise. And when that happens, people need to adapt.
Yes.
Only feisty people can receive the surprise and say, okay, what I'm going to do.
Yeah, you're not in the box.
Right? But we are not educated to deal with surprises.
Okay, so it makes the world.
Remember your high school. Remember high school. Yeah. You even got the teacher will tell you what is going to come in the test.
Right. Yeah, this is when you knew you had your schedule for the day. Well, every class was predicted. Once at the beginning of the year, you were sort of found out who was in your class, and then you knew who was in your class for the rest of the year. Like the whole day was very, bell went to tell you it was lunchtime.
Yeah, even when you were being evaluated, let's say that the element of surprise could be integrated. Like, okay, let's see what the person knows. No, they still let you know, okay, what you need to study and what is the frame. And like, we are not educated for flexibility. That means that if I don't know,
then teachers
gets dangerous, right? If I don't know how to be flexible and adapt, instantaneous, everything that is out of the rule, I don't know what to do. I get almost frozen, and that requires
freeze response, right? Now I don't want to be critical of Portugal because I love many aspects of Portugal. I'm here. This is sipping on my little beaker, and being Portuguese and learning Portuguese, and kind of adapting to the culture in many ways. I like it very much. But this particular aspect I've been finding difficult. I do see it as a safety strategy. Obviously, the history of trauma and dictator, and am I doing the right thing? Because if I'm not, I could get killed. There's real. I don't want to be unsympathetic towards it, but it's certainly something I think we've seen a resurgence of globally.
Yeah, because I think it's this idea that also people, of course, is the stigma, right? And the stigma is incredible damage for a person, because in the end we want to belong. In the end, we need someone to like us, so if we go too much in a zone that is no one can really understand, then we are excluded, and I don't know a lot of people that can deal with that.
It's tricky though. I think I'm immune. I didn't realize this. English culture is a concept of eccentricity. And I think we have a longer reign than the French or the Germans or the Dutch, or definitely fucking Scandinavians. Like, we have a longer reign of what is allowed, particularly if you're upper class in England. Like, weirdness is a compliment in England.
Yes.
In Russia, normal means good. In England, it means bad. If you said to someone in England, you're normal, they'd be like, fuck you. Yeah. Like this, like people often say, I'm weird, I'm a bit crazy. Like we have a sort of a longer leash, and I didn't realize that till I started traveling so much. Very cool.
Yeah, in Dutch they have a saying that normal is crazy enough.
Yeah, and tall poppies get cut down, right?
Yeah.
So you don't want to be exceptional, and you don't want to be. You're already. Don't be too weird. Don't be too special.
Don't be too much. Yeah, and that's. I think that is one thing that, for instance, sometimes here in Holland. I get, I don't feel that people put me aside, no way. I think people appreciate me because I'm different, and they appreciate the courage of doing that.
I never thought of courage.
Yeah.
I get it. You're not another, it's interesting. And as I said, I think cultures are confronting, but particularly in the current era of fear, that's a retreat, right? If I just do what I'm told, I'll be safe. I see people wearing masks on the beach, and I go, okay, no matter what your views are on COVID, there's no scientific, that's bonkers to me, even if you're hard lying.
But also, I think what we are missing a lot is the critical thinking. Like, okay, if someone is giving you something, can I ask why?
Right, and that's the board, right? Because that could be missing from the conspiracy side of things, and it can also be missing from I'm being told by the government to. I'll be safe if I wear a mask standing up.
Yeah, from both sides. I think we are losing our ability to think critical. Like, I have an au pair, and she's 20 years old. And now sometimes I say to her, you know what, whatever you go, whatever you learn, whatever you hear, just receive it, digest it, and transform that in you. And sometimes you ask, okay, I digest it and this doesn't fit. Ask why. Don't just go. Right. Just ask why you are saying this to me. And I think, for instance, here in Holland, one of the things that I appreciate is that, for instance, if a police officer stops you, and you can ask, but why?
Okay,
and we'll be a conversation.
Right. That's
not be a conversation.
I mean, Spain and Portugal still have that slightly fascist, we're the police, so fuck you. Don't you dare. Russia too. Don't you dare.
Don't open your mouth, just do what I say.
Russia,
Yeah.
I was used to British police, so that, and I used to met some Russian police when I crossed the road in the wrong place. They're like, you don't understand. You're very close to going to a bad jail for a long time. I'm like, okay, I'll shut the fuck up now. It's just power, it's not reasoning. But you know, do we want to base our society on power and not reasoning? I think
yeah,
not.
but that is
We need to
something.
wrap up.
Yeah.
Oh, this is so honestly challenging, but we do need to wrap up. I wish you were just like my friend and you live next door. That's the sense I would love. So I'll give you a shout when we can go for waffles when I'm in Amsterdam. And where do people find you? Where do they like? I feel like we just actually. First of all, is there anything you haven't said that you really would like to say before we kind of wrap?
I just really wish that we could live more, and that we could really be living, and with all this. That is okay, you know, being mad, being angry, sad, crying, everything is valid, and I wish that we could all be in that stage in the universe, that we could be living. Yeah, where people can find me. Oh, you just put my name in Google.
Websites, right? If you're listening on the podcast, there's something about your look which is really stunning. You know, this white hair, and you have a certain sort of, you know, elderly, sexy elegance, which is just sort of, it jumps out. You have a certain look, and I think that look is, tell me if I'm wrong, it's not just a physical look, it's a part of you. So I'd really recommend people get a kind of visual sense of you, because it feels like your style and your hair and your way of moving, it feels kind of a part of you. So if people on the podcast and not the YouTube, then they can go to, do you want to spell it? Because your name is not that easy.
So I think my name, I'm not really good at spelling. If you put my name in Google, you're going to see that I have a website, I have a YouTube channel, I'm all in Instagram. So if you put my name, Ligia Koijen Ramos, you will find me, I'm pretty sure.
Is that a Portuguese name? It sounds Japanese almost, the middle name.
So Ligia is a Greek name.
Yes.
So it's coming from the Greek and means the goddess of music. Even if I don't sing at all. Koijen is a Dutch name.
Oh, that's Dutch. Okay.
Yeah, it's coming from my husband. And Ramos is Portuguese Spanish. So I have some roots in Spain.
I've come across in Spain and South America. See, I saw your middle name because it looks Japanese. I pronounce like Koijen. You know, like I had like a samurai kind of pronunciation when I saw that. Okay, wonderful. This has just been lovely and a very nice philosophical backwards and forwards.
Yeah, thank you so much.
A real pleasure. Muito obrigado. And thank you so much for your time.